You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome again to the Monster Sci-Fi Show. I am your host, The Monster, and
I'm Mr. Gene.
Mr. Gene is making a special appearance on this third installment of our Dune Book Club podcast. And why?
Because it's Dune.
It's Dune. Well, no. I mean, I've done it before, but I thought it'd be special for us to, before we send it off to ourselves in the past, talking about Dune is coming out in the future, we're going to talk about the Dune in the present.
Yeah, I know. I'm just your guinea pig. I know.
We're going to do, and you liked it.
Eventually.
But we wanted to talk about the new Dune trailer, and we just rewatched it again just to kind of give you some ideas or some feelings about that before we go into the third book.
The world is not ready for this movie. This movie will fall once again at the overly done, overly expensive, overly long analog of films done by Denis Villeneuve that will never be finished, but it is amazing.
It
looks amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, again, I'll say 20 years, they'll redo Dune. Or some will try it.
Yeah, this is going to be the third time.
Right.
That
David Lynch, then the Sci-Fi Network, and
now this version. Which I'm like, come on, stop doing this. But then again, I felt the exact same way when I heard Batman Begins is coming out again. I'm like, really? We're doing Batman again? And then that blew me away. And the rest is history. So maybe in this time around with Dune might get it right.
Yeah. Not like the Tick. Right.
It
keeps coming out.
There's the animated one, and then 2 live actions, and whatever. But
because Barry Sonnenfeld can't get enough of it.
Right. Like, stop it, Barry.
Stop it.
Stop it, Barry. Stop it. Not run, Barry, run. See what I did there?
No one did. I did.
No one did.
I went to see
no one cares about your references. But the thing is, watching the Dune trailer, the way it all looks, it looks magnificent. And the concern is, and we talked about this in the past book club podcast, is that yes, we're going to see this in a big screen. Yes, we're going to see this in HBO Max, but they didn't film the second part. And I'm like,
they're not going to be able to finance to be able to fill the second part unless you want strange things. It might get done like Star Trek Discovery Season 4. Picard Season 2. I have no idea who's financing these things.
Right.
I don't want it, but here it is.
And the thing is, if we don't get enough of a big audience to watch this.
But there's no audience for this.
But that's the thing. There are stuff that are like, no one's asking for another Lord of the Rings series. Amazon is doing it. Mm-hmm. No one's asking for the Wheel of Time series, but Amazon is doing this. No one's asking for the Foundation series, but
Jeff Bezos went to space. No one else is asking.
No one's not for his return.
Well, I know he's got people that will pay
right
$28 million. Okay, that's great.
But with Apple TV doing the Foundation series, you have all these great properties that no one ever thought you could ever adapt them to the big screen or the small screen. But we live in that world that's a possibility.
And I think that we should take advantage of that.
Right.
It is sad that no one will watch this movie, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
You have your $26, your $30. You're up to $300 plus to throw up this movie and its merchandise if you want to.
Right.
Do whatever you want with that.
But
because you'll love it. You are going to love it.
We're all going to love it. We have to love it, Gene.
No.
The spices life. This Dune trailer is our life.
I didn't... Thanks for the cup of Kool-Aid. I didn't drink it yet. I poured it in the plant. The plant's dead. I don't know.
You will swallow the water of life, fucker.
No, kind of turned Paul all fucked up and see things.
He's got blue within blue eyes. Look how he turned out.
That's environmental poisoning.
Yeah. But again, there are
People in
lines.
Michigan. No, I'm sorry.
There are lines. Oh my
funny, sorry.
God! Wow, there are lines in the movie that I'm like, that's not in the damn book.
But it doesn't matter. It'll be iconic just the same.
Right.
Because again, this is not Dune for you. You are catching this in your 50s.
Yeah.
It's for the 20s and 30s generation.
Well, I mean, they're playing into the strengths of there's these stars that and other properties that we're bringing into this different kind of story that no one really knows enough of. Mm-hmm. Without Dune, we would never get Star Wars. We would not get tons of other properties that come from that world of Dune. With Game of Thrones, we talked about as well. Hopefully, this is not going to be the issue like what we had with John Carter's, where like by the time you get John Carter's, the world already has passed you by. No one cares about this. And I hope that doesn't happen here.
This movie has a lot to overcome.
Yes.
Again, the pandemic being the most powerful,
Right.
most demanding thing. I don't know if come October if there's going to be enough time to see this movie.
Right.
I don't think the world's going to be healed enough to give it the box office that it needs
And
to get its sequel.
Right. And considering how well or how not well the boxes are going to be,
I think
from
no
week
matter
to
what,
week,
it's doomed.
yeah, you'll get the initial people the first week, but then after that, since it's on HBO, there's really no need.
I think, unfortunately, it's lost its moment. I think any movie that came out from 2020 to 2022, late 2022, it's doomed.
Yeah.
You're never going to get the money you need to. And so this will be a strange time in Hollywood box office history where it was just, there was force majeure.
Right.
You can't do anything about it. This was the timing. We got to push the stuff out. Unfortunately, Dune is a casualty, which is so sad because it should be great.
Right.
But again, I don't know even the best of times because it's got a lot of world building to do in a short amount of time.
Right. And even when
New languages, new aliens, different ways of thinking. It's like, oh my God.
and how to do it better than it was done the two previous times. That's just another thing to overcome. So it's got a lot to do. And unfortunately, I'm trying to be optimistic here, but yeah, there's a lot that I don't see this working out. But who knows what happens in the next couple of months. We were all worried when we did the initial recordings back in October, November, how, we didn't know that vaccines were going to be rolled out. We didn't know how bad the rollout of the vaccines were going to be.
Nor do we know there would be a Delta variant that would
Right.
put
So
more people in the hospital.
So stuff has
Plus,
changed.
we live in Florida.
Yeah. DeSantis. Ass. Anyway, so things can still happen, hopefully for the better, but it's hard to gauge it. But again, from what we saw in the trailer, I'm excited for it. It's more of a traditional soundtrack that we hear from Hans Zimmer, which is available. The first two tracks, Paul's theme, and I forgot the second one, but you can listen to it from Waterhouse Music, which is WB. You can listen on YouTube. One of the cool things that I love about it is that the music that was in the trailer, that's what you hear in the soundtrack, which is a good thing because most times, most movies borrow soundtracks or music from other movies, and then you watch that movie, like, what happened to it? I like that. And like the stuff that happened in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. The trailers were amazing. I loved the music, and then I heard that crap, and I'm like, that's garbage. But in any case, we're not going to talk any further other than please go watch the Dune trailer if you have not seen it by now. Please.
We're trying to sell the whole hippopotamus.
Right.
See the movie.
And please listen to this podcast after. Please read the Dune book.
Good luck with that.
Because, we did all the hard work. We did a whole podcast on why Dune is great. And then we broke down the book in 3 different parts, this being the last part of our thoughts about Dune as far as a book. So when you read the book, hopefully you go back to the podcast, listen to our thoughts, and you too can live in the same world that I'm living in, as well as me trying to drag in Gene into that world.
How many of these damn books have you read?
I've read up to the 3rd one, but Dune is the only book that I've ever
Dune, Children of Dune, and a little bit of Heretic of Dune.
Dune Messiah, I think.
Because there's six.
No,
of them,
I know, but I think Dune Messiah is the one that the Sci-Fi Channel did with. No, it's Dune Messiah and Children of Dune is what they did in the second Sci-Fi Channel movie. They combined the two together. Okay. But what I'm saying, as far as Dune itself, the first book, that's the only one that I've read over and over again.
Why the love for Dune so much? I mean, I've gone through it. I looked at the glossary. I understand it. I will try to read it again before I see the movie, or shortly after. All right, because it was good enough.
Yeah,
But oh my God, it is difficult
it is.
to get through because there's a lot of weird mythology. It's very basic in its storytelling. It uses some tropes, and you're like, oh my God, did you just tell me about a betrayal that happened in chapter 1 that I'm then seeing in chapter 14 or 15? That, yeah, we're doing that. Like, oh my God.
And I think that was the whole thing about me being very intimidated by the first book.
It is a tome. It is thick. It is big.
So as such, I had the confidence to get into The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, which I started today, because that's like over 700 pages. But that too also has a glossary, and it also has maps. So these are very big stories, big worlds to kind of delve into. Dune kind of did that for me on an epic scale. So I've had
The original. It's the original Infection.
Right. So to me, that's my basis of having the leapfrog to do bigger stories to kind of get into those other franchises. So that to me, I think that's what's been helpful. So
yeah, the way I do it, I just need a trade paperback cover, trade paperback,
paper.
not fucking mass market, which I got on Dune. But a trade paper, a whole bunch of Post-it notes,
yeah,
or no, more page markers, and a fucking pencil,
and audiobooks too,
and audiobook to help through this particular tome. Yes,
yeah. So I definitely recommend those two
because it helps a lot. I had a lot of difficulty.
Yeah.
For you, I went through this.
Yes, you did.
As our friendship, I was like, all right, the movie's coming on again.
Yeah, but we watched the movies too.
Yes,
that's the other thing you should watch at least. Either,
but have someone that understands it walk you through that.
Right, and I did that with someone, and also she had at least a better understanding what it was.
Because it is confusing.
It is.
If you're trying to watch that movie cold, you'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Right, because I went into a cold too, but I had a friend that said, does this make any sense? But I know you will love it. And sure enough, yes.
Eventually you did.
Yes. And like, there's something there. I get it. And the more I delve into that, I really dug into it. So I got it. But on that note, I'm going to be really excited to turn it over to us talking about Dune. I think it was January that we had the discussion for this podcast.
And today it's late July.
Late July. Yeah, the last week coming up in July. So things have changed, for hopefully for the better. So on that note, I turn it over to us talking about Dune Book 3.
Sadly, let's get started. I was talking to Heather.
Don't sound so excited, Monty.
No, we waited, and we've worked on this for such a long time that I'm like, is this it?
It's ending. I know. 3 months went by really fast.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's saddened me that, all right, we reached book 3 finally, right? All right.
Oh,
So-
book 1.
Oh, book 1, right. So
Like,
I
we can go to book 3. I've read that far.
I've done my best to like get the word out on Facebook and Twitter. Honestly, I even reached out to Brian Herbert. I tweeted out as like because I DM'd him. I was like, remember that picture you liked, many years ago? And I go, "Oh,
It's like we're friends.
right. And I called him, hey Brian.
Hey, bro, come on.
Exactly. Can you do me a solid? I mean, you took my
Support
picture.
your local library. Or
Exactly.
not so local library.
Not so welcome.
So in August, you're going to try and contact Brie Larson and say, dear Brie, my birthday is coming up.
I mean, she's on YouTube,
Photos
so
on Facebook. Please, maybe just do a flyby my house. Just
That's not how it
peace.
works. That's not how it works. Anywho, so as we get started on this, one of the big things is that what are we going to do after this, right? Because Rebecca is now downtown,
Elsewhere.
Elseworld.
she got ingested by the worm. What? How?
She became the God Emperor of Dune.
There we go. My official title.
Spoilers, sorry.
That is what happens.
But one of the things that I wanted to see and kind of talk before we get started is that if we want to do this still on a Saturday, I'm being more than happy to do this once a month on a Saturday. But the question is, if we do that, do we talk about more Dune, or do we pick other sci-fi, maybe fantasy books like start off with a new series like Lord of the Rings or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Neuromancer that Rebecca suggested last time.
The galaxy and bring towels.
So, and that's going to be
I'll bring the towels. Okay.
Bring
that's a
your
new
towel.
series being made on
Like,
Hulu.
how could it be?
Yeah.
So that's a new series being made on Hulu that's coming up. Also,
Foundation?
I did not know that.
well, Foundation is Apple Plus.
Apple Plus, yeah, you're right.
We have Hitchhikers coming on Hulu.
Okay.
Ooh.
Nothing that I know about Neuromancer, but who knows?
No, it was just related to Cyberpunk 2077.
But in fairness, that also is what do you call that? A touchstone moment in which you would have like cyber punk come to the forefront of as storytelling with the
Yeah.
So I
And
think
there's like the Matrix 4, I think, is either still being in development, still being filmed.
Right.
So
So
that was my idea. It'd be more genre specific while touching on the book, but it depends what you guys want to do.
and then the other thing too is that I've been trying to
Just like,
I'm
type program so that we would move the book club to like a Tuesday from 4:30 to 5:30, so that this way Rebecca could do that while at work. So that's the other thing. But again, that's what I'm kind of like want to hear from you guys and your thoughts. So, Gene,
yeah, what works for everybody
I
else?
just want you to read Harry Potter, Monty. That's all.
I've read,
Finish the damn movie.
I've read at
I'm
least
asking.
2 books, so don't start with me.
I'm so what?
Well, I'm sorry. Did you just say at least 2?
2 Harry Potter books.
That's it?
Look, I've gone to like this movie, and that's it. Really? How long has it taken you, Gene, to get into Dune?
Hey, you know what? No, you can't touch me on that. Because
Da,
you're
da,
gonna
da,
pull me into this.
Da,
You
da.
know, I will pull you into the world of Harry Potter. I will make you love Dobby. I will. I swear to God.
I'll throw my sock on you. Right, I know. I get it.
Oh, boy.
Get a sock free. Right out the door.
Monty can do memes. That's all that matters.
Oh, my.
So yeah, and of course, Lord of the Rings. Amazon's going to be doing its new sequel or prequel that's thousands of years before that. So definitely, Lord of the Rings is up for grabs as well.
Is that still going on? Because I heard a lot of conflicting information
No,
about that
it's going on.
series.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely it's going to be like the Rise of Sauron.
Okay, and then like somebody like spun it to me. They said that it was gonna be like Game of Thrones, and I was immediately like, no, don't do that.
Hey, maybe we'll see Uncle Elves or something.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wait a minute. No, but what about the Wheel of Time? That's another series that's coming out. I think on Amazon as well.
It's fun. The Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. Let me
Yeah,
see.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan, definitely. That's been in the works for years. So yeah, that's another great series to
Yeah.
get into that I would love to get into. So
Tell me it comes in some other format.
I said book 6.
Just such a terrible thing to try to read.
hmm.
I should have got it in the. I should have gotten the trade paperback, not mass market. That was
There you go.
a mistake.
I've never seen a page count for Wheel of Time. I wasn't aware it's like 800 pages.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's really long. We need more.
We need something short, at least like
Right.
as a transition piece.
Okay.
Like a sorbet, the cleanse your palate between.
There you go.
Okay, how about one
'Cause I
that,
also- I also pitched Neuromancer because it's like 300 pages flat. So
Short is good.
Actually, I was gonna say a shorter series that shouldn't be too difficult to find now. But it's like proto YA, I guess is the best way to describe it. Have you ever read A Wizard of Earthsea? Or the
no,
first-
but we should. That's a good one.
What is it called? The Wizard of what?
Earthsea by
A Wizard of Earthsea is the first book. It's by Ursula Le Guin.
Lagoon.
Le Guin.
Le Guin. Yeah.
That's a good because that's a really well respected sci-fi book, so, or I guess fantasy.
Yeah, or
That-
the
that-
Fantasy, yeah.
or
Yeah,
the,
that's
The Lake of Heaven also, I think, would also be good. But
Yeah, that's another good one.
so again, we can think about what we want to do, but
So put all these on a list, put them in a box, and pick one.
Yeah. Just do a vote.
We'll make you pick, Gene.
Yes. And
no,
You gotta do a live like
stream.
a
And
live
here
stream
we
of you
go.
picking out the title. And it's gonna be the 800-page Wheel of Time.
Yeah, be the drawing, and they're like, oh.
we would all suffer through that.
Or The Stand. You know,
Oh, God.
Oh no.
We'll be there for a year, but I would do it.
So, all right, so let's get started. So, as we have for the past 3 times, our hosts, we have Heather over in Sunset. We have Rebecca, which is now in Maine, but from her home.
Yeah.
And
There's
me.
no giant skull tapestry at Maine.
No,
Just putting
no.
it out there.
God forbid there'll be such tribal things at Maine. All right, so we have with us you.
You guys.
You guys.
Hi.
That was,
Oh, wait. Somebody pick up their Chris knife and go, long live the fighters.
no, we missed it.
Oh, well.
Gene, did you give him his Chris knife?
We haven't been able to get together yet.
Well, Gene has
That's for you.
fine Gene. And
Thank you.
Please, Joe, just for you. Come,
Thank you.
It will taste your blood. Because again, I've just learned that you can't achieve this without
And
blood.
for anyone watching this recording, these are not real. These were 3D printed. We cannot hurt ourselves.
well, you can.
Well, you can, but you have to kind of try it.
They're really, really good. Yeah.
Your local librarians are not violent, is what I'm saying.
We made your Chris knife's chip and oh my God, I forgot the
Break.
saying. Break.
Chip
Thank
and
you.
Break.
Chip and break.
There we go.
There you go. All right. So
Mm.
as always, and maybe for our last time, we have our plans within plans. We have Dune news, Dune toy and surprise, which is for me. Dune comics, and then we'll do our book, Dune book discussion, and then Dune references in pop culture. I thought I'd kind of change it up for our last go around. So the big news is that from last time, Denny was really upset that Dune was going to be released same time on HBO Max as well as in the theaters. And looks like as of yesterday, Legendary, which produces that movie and Godzilla versus Kong, have come to a financial agreement. So I think we're cool that October 1st is still going to happen. So the question now, guys, is that because we have these iconic movies like Star Wars when it took place in 1977, that was like a touchstone moment for a lot of us. I can even argue that even Battlestar Galactica is one of those series that being reimagined has really, even today, a way of tapping into what is still currently going on with our society in that setting. And then we also have Avatar, which many people have, including myself, saw something that we've never seen before in a whole new way. But the question is, because Dune is coming out later this year, do you think, not to be biased, but with everything being done so far prior to Dune being released, do you think Dune can be on that level of reaching an audience that's never seen this before? So I'll leave it up to you.
I'll just say yes.
The yes have it.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm saying the yes is because it seems that they have somebody who actually knows how to market the movie. If we go by that first trailer, I'm not going, it generated a lot of interesting reviews. I tend to be one of those people who like to see other people's reactions to things, and I saw a number of different people who reacted to the movie, both people who are hardcore Dune fans and people who knew nothing about it, but just say, hey, wow, this really intrigued me. I want to go see it. That is what has me very hopeful for the movie. So that makes you go, yes, I do think it can. Now, with all things having occurred and whether we'll be able to actually go to theaters or not safely at that time, therein lies the question.
Yeah.
I also want to say just because I'm always like trying to look at this not from a fan perspective, because the fans are gonna go see it. Like for sure, we're gonna go see Dune, and more than likely, we're gonna try and see it in theaters so long as it's safe, or pay a ton of money to stream it if it's like a last resort kind of thing. But I try and see it from like a general public perspective, and at the very least, I want to say that the actors that they got and the launch of the trailer, I think matters to like a general viewer. If they're watching it and they're like, oh, there's Jason Momoa, and I see the guy from Star Wars, and there's that kid playing Paul, and that kid who's in everything, and like he's kind of an indie darling, and I feel like he's gonna pull his own crowd in there. Zendaya is really popular with teens because of Euphoria and Spider-Man, so fingers crossed that just because actors really do matter. I don't know if they matter like enough to carry the movie, but especially in the age of parasocial relationships through social media, like that's someone you feel close to and that you want to support. So I'm hoping that like it pulls people into this story, and like the way that we've been talking about it, and the way that we've been analyzing, like it's really the book's themes about ecology and power, and like the complicated structures of government and how they affect people and culture and the planet itself. Like hopefully that resonates with people and makes them, it makes them want to look at the story in a new way, and also look at the themes in a way that maybe they wouldn't have in the past.
I like it a lot, but I don't know if it's going to make it in the cinema very well. I mean, October is a long way away, but we're going to get so used to streaming things in our own home. I hope to see it in the theater when it comes out, and I will see it if it's safe. But right now the pandemic's running at an all-time high, and it's really scary out there. But you still have movie theaters available because we live in South Florida. It's not California. California's like, no, do not go outside. Disneyland's like, yeah, we're going to cancel the annual passes now because we don't know, but we live in Florida, so we're okay. We can go if we want to, but I don't know if the sales, if the money's going to come in, because really Hollywood's going to be suffering for a while after this.
Yeah.
And it's a pity with the timing of this great movie right now.
And I haven't looked at how because like Mulan lost a lot of money from what I can know, but they were kind of really banking on China's box office, and it underperformed there for a variety of reasons. So I thought like our next closest equivalent is the Wonder Woman movie, but I don't know how they're measuring its like financial success. So
I think it's like when Trolls made like $100 million when it was released on POV. That if you are like, yeah, we did great and we're going to brag about this, but when you don't hear anyone else brag about their stuff being released,
it's not so good.
Nothing is happening. And I'm like, they would have mentioned that if that was a blockbuster,
For Wonder Woman?
Or any of that. After
it had a bad week.
And
I enjoyed Wonder Woman for what it was, but
it had a rough week. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I think it's going to be definitely. It was always going to for me always going to be an uphill battle to have Dune tell this story, especially in two parts. Already
3 hours long.
Or that weight of that universe to being explored for the first time. Not to say that Avatar, didn't win people over in that one movie, or Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, but Dune, I think, has an even heavier weight on itself because of what we've been reading, and we'll see what happens. I'm definitely would like to be optimistic that in October we'll get to see this, but I don't know, man.
Really depends on whether or not we can see it in theaters. I think if we if it's safe and people are vaccinated and come October we're back to normal, I think it'll do really well. Don't know, because it's hitting that like young adult audience more, and I feel like it's not targeting itself as like a strictly like a family movie like Trolls was. So I feel like if it comes out in theaters, we might get some people who just like came with their friends to watch it that are then like, what's going on? What is this? Maybe I should read the book.
I also want to like hope that by October, because I know that there's no way to really to predict the timeline of like how many people are going to be vaccinated by then. I know that they're hoping it's like 70% of the population, something like that by fall. But I'm hoping that if that does happen, what pushes Dune to like success levels is that no one's been able to go see a big movie in the theater for so long. Because
this is playing, let's go.
Yeah, like because even like friends that I had who maybe went to the movies like maybe 6 times in a year, which is not a lot if you really think about it. Like they've been like, dude, I just miss going to the movies. I miss like a gigantic screen, just slotting like 2 hours of my day and like, or going on a date night to the movies. So hopefully if we're okay and Dune is being released like nationwide, then that's enough for people to be like, you know what, this is like the first major release in like 2 years at this point. Let's go watch it.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. That's all we can hope.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. So over the holidays, my daughter got me my own Funko Pop.
Oh wow.
Daw.
Oh.
The blue eyes.
So I don't know if you can see my figure over here, but that's
If you
been.
have it with you, you gotta show it off.
You see it? I have it on another screen.
Let me see.
At
Yeah.
all? Okay.
Oh my god, it's so cute.
So this one, I got Rebecca one, and my daughter got me one. So I'm like, it came full circle. The other thing that I was surprised that I got, my daughter bought me Etsy. So it's a signed copy. I mean, it's of course it's a copy, but it's an actual, copy of what the original script was, signed by the entire cast.
Oh my god.
Ecstatic about
Wow.
this from my daughter because she knew how much of a fan I was. So, talk about a really good Christmas present. So I was really happy about that.
Wow.
So I make up for Walmart canceling my action figures.
You made up for it. You're not gonna curse them and try to burn down their house, or
No, I'm still gonna curse them. But I'm just saying, my daughter kind of saved their butts. So, yeah, and I'm still looking around at Walmart with Jean and Target. They're still not going to be what I want to pay, which is like $20 plus.
you should get them soon, Monty, because they're gonna disappear
Oh,
pretty quick.
I know. All right, so moving on, Dune Comics. So, as I mentioned last time, Hoopla has the first volume or the first issue. Then we have the second one. Guess what? The third one is now officially out. So we have now the third issue of Dune House Atreides. So again, once we're done with this, I'm definitely wanting to get into now, since I have no free time, not to read any more of our book, but to read the comics. But the first couple of pages is like, wow, Baron is a lot lighter. He's not as fat in the beginning.
Mhm.
You're gonna discuss this.
That was
The
a fun-
artist ran out of ink.
yeah, kind of like pre-Vader. It's not it's Anakin. I'm like, okay, so he just looks much different. But
Interesting.
all right, so let's get into our book discussion.
All
Am I
right.
getting-
Are you gonna leave with questions, or we're just gonna talk about it?
No. We have a presentation.
I make pretty PowerPoints. That's
Yeah.
the only reason I'm here. But Monty, give me the power. Am I sharing the screen?
Stop my share.
Okay.
Y'all see it?
It's coming. There we go. All
There
right.
we go.
Okay. I'm using the work laptop
Sandman.
for the first one.
Okay.
The Sandman.
Oh boy.
I mean, it's not totally unrelated. Okay. I'm trying to think how. Okay. So when we made this.
Ah, Jesus. Sorry. I got my cat in my lap and he's digging his claws at me. I'm just like, all right, you go on the floor now. Just...
My cat's lurking
No,
around.
no,
If he comes
yes,
by, I'll show him off. Okay, so to start with the discussion, I just want to point out that a lot of these questions were made by Heather. And I feel like both Heather and I just really, really wanted to talk about part 3 because it features the best little girl character of all time.
Creepy. You're like, I'm a freak. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. She
And
knows
that's
she's
why
a
we
freak.
love her. Yes, the weirdo girls of today and tomorrow love her. So,
Go.
but so I think what we're gonna do, like, a lot of a lot of character or theme focused discussions, and then at the end we can just like talk about the book overall, how you felt about it, how your first reading or second or third reading experience with it was like, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. But kind of where Heather started off and where I thought it was an interesting point to start off was with the Baron, because whenever you're going back and reading Dune, I feel like you kind of like when Monty talks about cultural touchstones, you see how like sci-fi and fantasy has evolved and adapted over the years. And when you go back to something like Dune, you're kind of seeing a lot of origins of maybe not like where classic villainy or classic hero truly began, because that kind of storytelling is obviously very old, tracing way back to even before Beowulf. But it's still like, it still feels monumental and kind of like the first of its kind. So we talked about Vladimir Harkonnen, that he is by all accounts a classic villain. And Heather had like she pointed out like he's described as like laughing maniacally and like screaming orders, and he'll strike out at people and kill people who like disobey him. So I find it really enjoyable to read about his that type of villain portrayal, the type that's like unabashed in how like evil they are. But what do you think of his character? What do you think of the way that he's written? And in some ways, when you see him in context, how do you like his role as a villain? How do you think that kind of character has evolved since the Baron?
He's evil. I mean, his taste for little boys is strange to me. I'm just
Thought about including a
and the
hint of
body
that.
just lies there. He's like, that boy, you did not notice the blemish. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh
what-
God.
That's evil. Yeah, okay. Very
Uh,
strange. But yeah, evil. Yeah, good.
No. Well, the Baron. Okay. What I always felt was kind of sad with him is that like they never. I'm hoping that he's better represented in the new Dune movie than he was in both the original movie, well, the movie by
Lynch.
By our man Lynch.
and also by the 1984 movie and of course the TV series. Because I always felt that he was truly a combination of the two versions of the Baron that they described. Because the Baron in the movie was just the psychotic villain.
Yeah.
And the Baron in the TV show or the TV miniseries was the
It's a lot more calculating and not
the
poised,
the cunning strategist. He was the courtier who just basically was playing the chess game behind the scenes. And I'm going, the book Baron is both those things. He was a combination of the two. And that's what I think made him more interesting. He wasn't just kill them. He's more like, if I maneuver this and I change this and I dabble a little here, they'll kill themselves and then I can laugh.
Yeah. And actually that's a good thing to point out, because I think because I watched the movie as I was rereading the book, I kind of had at the forefront of my mind the way that David Lynch portrays him. But you're right that in the movie he's like portrayed as a lot more grotesque and evil. Like they really, really emphasize that. And maybe because, you know, David Lynch as a director is kind of a weird guy and he wanted to indulge in like the over the top aspects of the character, but that's not really how he is 100% of the time in the book. So
Exactly.
I think that's a good thing to point out, and also to like think about as we're going into the new movie, like are they gonna dial it back a bit to show his cunning manipulative side, because otherwise how did he amass all this power?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think along that same lines, again, going back to Lynch's movie and seeing how the Baron is like the moment that he's talking to Beast for Ben, I want to, telling him, once you go back to, I want you to squeeze, then squeeze.
Like he squeezes his mouth, he's full of food. I'm like, oh.
So that moment, when we see that in the book, it's not about I want you to squeeze, and then like he's getting like actual joy out of that moment. It was more like, I need you to squeeze because it took me a lot of money to get all these people onto Arrakis to wipe out the Atreides. So I need you, and it has a different text altogether, a different context altogether, because I need you to kind of like, I need all that money to come in so I can pay off what it cost me to do what I did, which is a lot different from the how the twisting of the mustache and twirling of that. It's a much different take.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more subtle in the book than what we see in the movie. So what happens in the new movie, if they can find that balance, I definitely would like to see that be more refined as opposed to just be like, he's just being mean just to be mean. There should be a value behind his actions. So at least in the book, it's like, yeah, squeeze everything out of the fragment because this cost me a lot of money. So we'll see what happens when they do this in the movie. But again, you understand what his plans are and his motivations are, but it's nothing like in the movies.
Yeah. I was actually hoping that like we would see like, I don't remember when I read this, but the Baron wasn't always like grotesquely obese. He was actually cursed by, I think, Lady Gaius Helen Mohim to be fat and grotesque. And I feel like that insight into his background and his character of like, and then he like got enraged because he tried to like find a way to undo the cursing of his like morbid obesity, and then he had to have like his levitation. And I think having a backstory about maybe some like, from foreshadowing about what happened to him might really help evolve his character, because we see him now when in like the movie from the 80s is just kind of like a floating blob of a human with like giant like pustules zits all over his face, that they were really trying to drive home that he was evil, and he was calculating. But I hope like they'll take more of a perspective from the books originally and just like give us new insight about why he's like this. And I think that would be really exciting to see.
Yeah.
In new ways.
Insight without dialing him back, because I do enjoy him being kind of weird, outlandish, and enjoying like his evil tactics. Like I don't want them to pull it too far in the other direction, and like really emphasize a tragic backstory or his pain. Like I want that there to inform the character. I don't need that there to transform the character.
Yeah.
So,
I still
like it, but on the side, basically.
On the surface.
Right.
Maybe that's why, like in the comic books, they're reflecting him as, because at one point in time he was described as actually like quite handsome, but I think like in the movies they really wanted his like evil manipulative side of tactfulness, of just like taking it too far. They really wanted that to like reflect in his appearance, and so they were like, this is obviously the villain. I hope they don't like step too far away from that, in the new movie coming up, but it's kind of interesting to see how like villainy has evolved and how much like from that movie in the 80s we got, you know, villains floating maniacally and like striking out at people with their cane.
Yeah, and I think modern audiences kind of expect that complexity now. Even if it's not done well, they expect you to at least acknowledge that every bad person has a side to their humanity that's complex or at least a little bit good.
Right. Exactly. One of the things that makes a villain effective is that he has to believe that he is the hero of his story.
Yeah. And like I
Have
also
that
the
point of
Baron does feel
like
that way.
Thanos. You know, you may not agree what he wants to do, but he has a point. Killmonger also has a point.
Yeah.
So again, if you have that be the crux of the Baron, that he's not the bad guy. I'm doing this because the Atreides are not good people, and he can make that argument, then we have an interesting villain to see. Because I would like to see the world through his eyes, and if that could be told, I'm into that.
That would be amazing. I would watch that.
A Harkonnen miniseries.
Mm.
Which I guess ties back into this. Are the Harkonnens the real or even the only villains of this story? Because I think the book gets less sympathetic towards, well, not less sympathetic, but it definitely says like, you know, like Paul's not necessarily the savior
Oh yeah,
of this world.
we're like seeing it as like a collective as a whole at the end. It's, can you make the argument that like, well, the Harkonnens probably killed less people?
Yeah.
Like at the
Oh
end,
Jesus! If we're measuring it by that count,
we're measuring
No, boy.
no, we're not. Okay.
to the house Harkonnen make in comparison.
Joe's like, step it back a little.
Yeah, I mean, are they the real like? I would totally watch a miniseries about it from the Harkonnens' perspective. And I'm just trying to be successful for my house. Yeah, you can.
Well,
take
and I think part of like this question is more something to think about as you're continuing the series.
Yeah.
Not that I like know too much about the sequels, but I do understand that like over the thousands of years that the saga takes place in, like things change. And the legacy you leave behind is not necessarily always going to be
The one you
one, what you expected, or two, what you built towards, because anything can happen, anything can change it.
Right. Sorry, Mr. Trump. Right.
yeah.
Well, in fairness, like the whole after this, the Fremen really become like speaking the word of Paul as their gospel and like taking his word and just doing whatever in his name. And that's what happens in the next book, that it's like, this is not what I wanted, you know.
Oh, Dune Messiah. Oh boy.
Yeah, it
That was a hell of a read. That's all I'm gonna say. It took me a long time to be able to get through that book, but once I started reading it, I was like, okay, this is actually really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But
I love that Joe's
going
the
back
only
to-
one of us who knows. He knows what happened.
but
I've read it.
but what I was huh?
I read
Oh,
it.
go
Sorry.
on.
You're the
I was
only one
just
that
gonna
read,
say,
that read the Messiah that understands it. It's only you, Joe.
Only me, okay.
You're
But I
the
was
one that
gonna say
braved it,
about
that
the-
survived it with your sanity intact.
About
I forgot Heather's read it, so
I beg pardon.
yes.
So
But I was gonna go with the over villainy for a moment, and I'm gonna say, well, we keep forgetting like the bigger manipulating hand behind all this, House Carino and the Emperor, because Shaddam was a vain, manipulative bastard.
yeah.
Not that you wouldn't
Mhm.
need anyone to be Emperor of the universe, but that's a whole different story. It's just that he was like the main villain behind everything. He's the one who like engineered the need to have Leto lose Caladan and have to go to Arrakis. He's the one who like had the Baron give up his cash cow basically, and say, okay, you can have it back, and I'll give you some of my troops, but you got to pay for it. In other words, he was just manipulating everything in order to keep power, because he was terrified of the Atreides and what they were able to do.
Yeah,
and
and the
that,
level
that was
of
the biggest conflict.
I think the level of manipulation that anyone, like, because in the story, power is to manipulate the people, whether through folklore or warfare or just intimidation tactics like that. I mean, it's realistic and it's also, it kind of potentially makes everyone a little bit villainous, if you ask me.
Yeah, they're all manipulating each other.
All of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, from the Bene Gesserits to the Spacing Guild to the houses of the Landsrat. Yeah,
Everyone.
Yeah.
exactly.
So this question, we saved the controversial question for the middle of it. So I'm just gonna read it, and then like Heather and I will explain why we brought it up, because this, I tried to do research afterwards, and I just got like 30 like think pieces and analysis, and people being mad, and then people being mad at the people who were being mad. So I'll go ahead and read it. The term white savior is an often discussed trope regarding the portrayal of white characters acting as saviors to people of color, oftentimes in a self-serving manner. That's the important part. As discourse on representation and diversity in media evolves, how does Dune fall into this analysis? Is it fair to classify Paul's role as that of a white savior for the Freemen? And apparently, like, I don't know if this has always been a point of contention or if this has always been something that's been brought up, even if in the margins for the book. But I saw a lot of articles from like this year and last year of people really saying like, look, like Dune is really important to the sci-fi genre and it's a lot of your childhoods and your introduction to sci-fi, but like it kind of falls into that trope. And then I saw a lot of people making the counter argument that's a very simplified reading of the text and of who Paul is as an individual. So before I give my thoughts on it, I don't know if Heather wants to jump in or if anybody else wants to jump in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think. I mean, it was written in 1963. You know, and for the times, white is white. The diversity idea of diversity hadn't come in yet. And when you do this movie again, or you can recast someone to show more diversity. You can cast a person of color. I started thinking of the Fremen as like effective Ewoks. Remember the Ewoks?
Yeah.
Right? The Ewoks joined the rebel cause because C-3PO gives a speech and they think C-3PO is a god, right? So is that? I mean, the color doesn't matter. I don't think it's what he represents. You know, the Bene Gesserits have been predicting this, have been manipulating this whole timeline. You know, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't know, but it's inbred in their culture. So I don't think that the color matters that much. I mean, again, it is the story of its time. You can change that. It's unfortunate that's written that way, but you have to look at it through better eyes, through education. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what you're saying is basically the race is inconsequential to the text. Like it's not about that.
Right, because it's a prophesized individual. You know, and it's not like he's going to be white. He's going to be this. It's like, no, the Bene Gesserit person will come down and bring this down, and it's a prophecy. It doesn't matter, in my personal opinion.
I feel like I originally got this like comment. I was like looking on Twitter and someone was like, oh gosh, another, you know, hero that's a white actor. And I was just originally thinking, I was like, well, Paul kills everybody. so I don't essentially classify him as like a white character, but in a way I can see like this is a new movie and they chose like as they could like his race is unconsequential, but
they could have chosen anyone. Yeah.
Like the main character, and from like when you're starting out reading the book, you're following Paul's hero journey, or at least what you think is his hero journey, and then you learn maybe he's not the hero. Oh no, what did he do? This is taking a turn for the worse. They did choose to portray the main character who you're following. His like the people who are going to watch the movie for the first time and have no idea what's going on are just going to be like, well that took a dark turn. They might not view it the same way anymore, but they did choose, and at least the new movie coming out, to
diversify the cast too.
Character, like more people of color, the chance to portray other characters. So maybe the new movie is going to take a different perspective on this, but I was like, I could see it being argued both sides. Like, in a way, he's coming to a desert planet and just being like, I'll fix it. I was prophetized, you know. But I feel like it's easier now to see Paul as maybe he's not white in the books. If you were reading it from a different perspective, would you always, that first thought that goes into your mind is it's gonna be a white guy who's gonna come and fix everything? So I think it's gonna
Yeah, I would think the white savior like criticism would be better reserved for the movies. And even then, like, I don't know how exactly it's going to play out in the adaptation, if there's going to be changes to be made. But something you said, Heather, is kind of my interpretation of it, where Paul's not necessarily a savior. Like, sure, he's like, that's what the destiny says. That's what the Bene Gesserit wanted. That's to some extent what he's kind of manipulating himself towards. But he's kind of using the Freeman for his own gains, and he's constantly afraid of like, am I going to trigger massive destructions? Am I hurting these people? Am I hurting myself? Like, what am I really doing here? And I think and like this term came up a lot because I was an English major in college, and we had to analyze this a lot. And I remember someone brought this up related to Daenerys from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Where albino dragon lady is the ultimate white savior. And I it rubbed me the wrong way at the time, because I think it's fairly accurate for the TV show to have that criticism, where they stumble and kind of fail to really capture the nuance of her character and her actions. But in the books, it kind of does show that she's not really a savior. Like, she's trying, but she's this 14-year-old girl who's to some extent has a very limited mindset and doesn't understand always that she doesn't know what she's doing. She's causing harm sometimes. Sometimes she has just a purely selfish perspective. And you go back and you see Paul so young and so conflicted, and also kind of exploiting both his family, himself, and these people, that I think the term doesn't really apply, because it's ultimately about like power structures failing to really like help generations or civilizations.
Here's a question. What if you portrayed the Harkonnens as black?
Ooh.
Oh,
No, don't do that.
tough it out.
How wrong would that be?
Really interesting. Oh.
Or you make the Atreides,
Your trading is black.
and then the Harkonnens are white, and literally it becomes a whole race war.
Yeah, then there's all these tests.
So
These other subtleties.
difficult thing to kind of to balance, where like in Battlestar, you change the sex of a character from
Male to female, yeah.
but
The female, right?
race or to portray it, I think has a lot more consequences. I mean,
Especially in the story, like about power and government and ruling and
right. So
exploitation of people.
Yeah.
so I'm trying to do that and like I want to update it.
Movie.
This is a basic thing. I mean, I'm sure like what? Frank Herbert. I don't know. I don't have a picture of him. White guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so simple then. Simple. I write a hero. I want the hero to look like me. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
Hero.
During the time, whatever, the main character to look like me. I want a little 15-year-old boy to be my race. You know what I mean? And that makes sense to me, because even as a writer, it's hard to write in a different culture. You know what I mean? To understand that. It doesn't matter what he looks like, but if you're creating it, you're going to default to whatever your background is.
Yeah.
Just to make things easier. I mean, the Memoirs of a Geisha book, written by a guy, written from the viewpoint of a woman from a different culture. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
You know?
And he didn't do it well.
Yeah, and but you know, direct. Well, you got a
That's
good
a hot take.
great movie out of it. You know what I mean? New York Times, but you know what I mean? It's just what it was back in 1963. Who knew it would catch? It's an epic thing. It's great world building, you know. And when you the question is that when you make it into a movie or TV
What do
show
you yeah.
in modern times, how do you cast that? Because
Yeah, and
now-
I think that's also a good point, that like you have to remember that as revolutionary and forward thinking as Frank Herbert is, he's still a man of his time. Which is also something that like I would often see discussed when talking about Lord of the Rings, which if you kind of look at certain aspects of the world building can get a little iffy when seen through a modern lens. But it's like you're not really blaming Tolkien, or you're not blaming Frank Herbert for not having the mindset of a 21st century man. Like if you phrase this question, if you're going to pose this question, it needs to be within the framework of, okay, then how do we adapt it? What do we change to modernize it without like hurting the original book, not blaming Frank Herbert for being a man of the 60s.
But again, I think that we are now becoming more sensitive to this.
More aware, yeah.
To this flaw in society. But even now, it's working reverse-wise to me. Like, I was watching WandaVision last night, and there's a council meeting with a diverse cast. And I'm like, it's 1950. That's not what it looked like. But okay, I'll give it to you.
Well,
oh, Gene, don't spoil. I haven't seen WandaVision yet.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that's not okay.
It's not like how it was. Like when we watch Stranger Things, we get this like nostalgic.
Yeah.
But that's not how the 80s is. But
No.
it's how we want the 80s to be.
Oh, here's a question, and I don't know if anyone has saw this, but there's a Asian movie called The Wandering Earth. I think came out 2019 or
The big hit in Japan, the blockbuster on Netflix. It's amazing.
So
I'll watch it.
It's really good. I highly recommend it, right? But this is an all Asian cast.
Right.
So the question is, where are the American actors? I'm like, you don't need to have American actors or be like have Americans be part of the story, because this is their story. They're the heroes of their story. So that's the thing. It's like, no, they're not trying to save just Japan. They're trying to save Earth themselves. So that's what you don't need to worry about. You need to include America in here, or we don't need
to be the focus of everything.
Right. That's the thing. And that's the thing that we have to take apart from this, is that because he wrote it this way does not mean it's universal across the board. Other people have the exact same kind of view that it's like, no, we all look at it this way because that's our story. So everyone has the same similar version, but I'm like, no, if we just make it universal, which is pretty much what, if you want to take out the white savior aspect, everyone has themselves inserting themselves into that story anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not saying that that's wrong. It's just they're the hero of their story. So whether white or Asian, everyone is going to have that point of view anyway. So
they're going to want to be the hero.
Right. And I'm sure someone's
or
like,
see themselves as the hero.
save you from the world. And no more of that. No.
But it's kind of the idea that whatever country produces this movie gets to build the cast.
Right.
Whoever puts up the money, whoever has creative control, up to you.
Right.
But you're gonna live in a culture that you came from, that you're gonna have influences of.
Or if you have like a Russian spy movie, the Americans are the bad guys,
Right.
Yeah.
I want to see a Russian actor do an American accent in a Russian movie.
No.
It's gonna be amusing to me.
It happens.
Baseball, apple pie. We know. Okay, this is the
Wow, really?
Oh boy.
Hot dogs.
hot dogs. Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
Oh, Joe, did you have anything to add to the question?
No, it was just like one of my favorite YouTube guys who talks about doing Quinn. He answered that same question, and he's like going, first of all, this is at least 25,000 years in the future, and that we don't know what race or even how human relations would have changed or morphed in all that time, with all the people moving from place to place, and considering the place that it's in. It's sort of like saying, okay, let me take that entire story and just like focus it through our lens, because it's the convenient thing to do. He goes, look, you could use the Mighty Whitey dub it, which I was like, oh yeah. But He goes, enjoy the story for what it is, not for not for the way you want it to be shaped or to be seen, to be culturally appropriate for the time that you're in. Pretty much the same argument everyone has said. I'm just saying, it's like, can we just let it go and enjoy the story? But not inject our current politics into it, and hopefully see it as a lens to be able to see ourselves in a different way.
Yeah, because I don't find this kind of criticism invalid. Again, because I understand where it's coming from. I understand why it's necessary for this kind of potentially destructive, racially insensitive narrative to be deconstructed. But I think it's more important to apply that to contemporary tales of people writing it in the modern era who should know better, who have the resources and the knowledge of years of literary analysis to know, like, hey, maybe this isn't okay anymore. So like when you apply that to the modern era, to modern writers, I think you have more of a valid argument. Whereas if you're like, it's okay to kind of analyze works of the past and say, well, maybe it's no longer okay to imply certain things or to portray certain things, but like, those writers are dead. There's nothing they can do to change the story at this point.
Do you have like death of the author?
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, you don't gain anything by trying to figure out, well, did Frank Herbert try to write a white colonialism story? Like, you don't know what he was trying to do or what he was trying to portray other than what the text is telling you. And to me personally, the text is telling me that, no, like, this is not a savior story. This is a young boy kind of thrown into a very complicated and potentially very destructive situation. And speaking of young children and destruction and complications, we're going to talk about Alia, our fave.
Okay.
So I'm just going to read this. So, as a result of being exposed to the water of life while in her mother's womb, Alia displays frighteningly powerful abilities. What's your impression of her as a character? Is she a misunderstood little girl with uncanny ability, or is she just an outright abomination? What do you think?
I honestly, I mean, it would freak me the heck out. I would, if I saw a 1-year-old child walking around talking with experiences. I mean, sure, she's got a lisp, but I'm sorry, my answer would be, oh my God, kill it with fire. You know, it's just too weird, but really imaginative for the time. You know, and really
it's
cool.
even weirder.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh my gosh. I love the conversations. The time jump in the Prophet for book 3 is it's 2 years, but so many things have changed, you know, and I'm like, all right. I mean, like, Paul's got a kid that gets mentioned a few times, I think, and it's just like, what? Okay. But it's an adjustment, but I like the way that Alia's written. I like the conversation she has with Lady Jessica and Hera, and the way they're trying to plan, and the way she's playing like Queen Gambit chess strategies with everybody. And I'm like, and she remembers like her birth and being sentient. I was like,
yeah, I think she remembers being in her mother's womb.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm like, all right,
No. But that's the thing everybody has to remember. She doesn't just remember being in her mother's womb. She remembers being her mother. And being her mother's mother.
And generations back,
her mother's mother, plus everyone who Lady Rollo had in her psyche. So that all those generations past, she remembers all of that. Like the way she freaked everybody out when she saw a baby and was remarking that he looked like someone on this other planet. And then everybody was like looking at her like, we're terrified of you.
Yeah, and like that's definitely true. Like I'm always talking about like how Paul is like only 15 and being thrown into like the deep end and being forced to become a prophet and a leader for a planet, an entire planet. And I'm like, yo, but Alia has like the most trauma even before she's born. And like the picture that I chose doesn't even really like hit. It doesn't really illustrate how little she is, because I think she is only 2 for the prophet, right?
Yeah.
She's basically a toddler. And rereading that scene was wonderful, because I remember being 10 years old and reading the scene where she kills
the
Baron, and I just like, I lost my mind. Like my brain shut down because I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
Heather, you talk about her.
When
Lady
you talk
Jessica's
about the
fault.
Baron in the book, they talk about how cunning and thoughtful and how strategic his like plotting was and how evil he is and how much power he's accumulated over the years of like building up his house and like
And this little girl.
that in he was always like one step ahead, and just to have him like killed off by a small child, it really reflects how powerful that she is. And it's kind of like she's my favorite character.
Yes.
I love her character so much because she's so very complex, but like people are like she's saying things and she's doing things that young children are not supposed to be doing, so everybody's freaked out by her. But I find her character really interesting because in the first book we're like she has the possibility and potential to go either way. She could become an abomination, but I feel like she was set up to like just go crazy with power.
Oh
She
God.
too much responsibility, and unlike Paul and Lady Jessica, where they're trained for all of this potential prescient abilities, she just jumped in right away and got all of them in utero, and then she was able to see her birth, and she's from too many perspectives. I think she wasn't given the opportunity to not go insane.
So oh, go ahead, Monty.
When you mentioned that in utero, if Paul is seeing the future lay out before him, let this happen. He could have any time just say to Lady Jessica, "Don't drink the water of life," because of what's going to happen with your sister or your child.
You're done.
But he doesn't see things.
Let it happen, right? You can argue that he let it happen.
But he doesn't see things in the right order sometimes, or he sees different things. He's not sure about his abilities at points.
No,
Because he sees
I would
things a certain
argue
way, but
what I would argue is that if this didn't occur, what worse thing could have happened? If he remember what Paul's prescience and his massive exposures to spice at this point, he was attempting to avoid the jihad,
Yeah.
the mass.
He's kind of got like blinders eyes
battle.
and
That right. It's like he's trying to save as many people as possible. A lot of people keep skipping that part, and I'm like going, he allowed the things that occurred to occur so that he could save as many as he could. That unfortunately meant something had to happen.
yeah, Alia's kind of
There's no way to
collateral
avoid it.
damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Which
some
is
ways,
something-
that is true.
Yeah, so like, and every time I read this, I just think back. So like when I was 10 reading this for the first time, I was like, oh my God, this little girl is amazing. She's so cool. And I never read the sequels, but like in my brain, I was like, she's gonna grow up to be a total badass and like usurp Paul or some crazy stuff like that. And I'll read the sequels, I'll see what happens. But reading back on it now, I'm like, oh my God, no, like this is a tragedy. With really cool moments, but yeah, she's kind of collateral damage. She's unlike Paul and Jessica, who are trained into this, and even to some extent have the years to be able to like fully acclimate their brains to the change of what their choices. Alia never gets a choice. Like
Yeah.
never gets a choice to like anything that she's experienced and she remembers in the past and who she becomes in the present and maybe even the future.
she's a vessel of the knowledge of generations, right? She's that extension of the lens through time and space from the water of life, given that ability, drunk from the womb. You know what I mean? But, well, I mean, it's just how it is. But her character is amazing. Her arc is a lot of fun. I have to admit, I like reading about Paul Atreides. I get that he's the whatever it is. I can't even Usul, whatever. Paul, so many different names for him. But I really like Alia's story, and I like Lady Jessica's story a lot. It's fun for me because there's so much depth in there. Just a different like file of character building for that. And I am curious about the Bene Gesserits. I do like that.
Yeah, and
Hopefully,
actually, oh, go ahead, Monty.
I was gonna say, hopefully we'll get a lot more of Alia in the new movie.
I'm gonna be really excited to see how they do that.
Wait from my brother, Baron, and like that's it.
Oh yes.
you know,
Although the kid from the original Dune movie is
know.
pretty creepy, so
She-
she did okay.
The unnerving nail on the head.
I mean, Lynch probably traumatized her. I'm just making the assumption here.
Like, rip away, like, and he like flies into the spaceship and just out of a wall. Oh,
Yeah, and I didn't really sit down to do an analysis on this, but like all the talk that we're doing about how race is inconsequential to the book, I agree with. But I feel like gender roles, gender dynamics, there's a lot that you can read into the fact that Ali is not a little boy, she's a little girl. A little girl coming from a long line of women who have like had to plan for generations and even suffered a lot to be able to arise and get to the power that they have. So I don't know, it's interesting. I would like to some extent, if ever I have time, to like do an analysis of her character and how Herbert portrays the women of Dune.
yeah.
Because Ali is kind of like what it all comes down to, what it all leads into, in my opinion. She's a really fun character. Yeah. So this was Heather's question of, since we're talking about all our side characters, we don't want to forget about our main boy. The question being, why did Paul seek the throne, and was it the right choice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because ultimately he wants revenge, but he could have stopped once the Baron was dead, and then he continues on to fulfill the prophecy that was set out before him, where he was being put in a position of being idolized and worshipped by the Fremen. He could have just stopped when he got revenge against the Harkonnens for his family house. He could have stopped, once his father's, once the Baron died. He took it a step further. Was this the right choice? Like, it makes you like reflect on his character. So like,
Well,
yeah.
I have to interrupt there and go back to what I said previously. The big manipulator in the end was actually the Emperor, not the Baron. Because the Emperor manipulated the Baron by giving him the choices that did. And he did the same thing with House Atreides. He was afraid of Duke Leto
Getting his
because
hands.
Duke Leto was more popular than he was. So there was that issue with that, and also the fact that the Duke was creating an armed force that was as good as or better than the Sardaukar of the time. So that's where his fear came in, and he said, "No, I have to eliminate this opponent," which would be the most judicious way to do it without arousing the anger or suspicion of the rest of the Landsraad. And that was through manipulating the Baron, who already had beef with the Atreides. So it was Paul was basically saying, I'm taking what you want most because of what you did to all of us. So
Yeah,
I think he was justified in taking the throne.
Yeah, I think his intentions are always like one of the better ones compared to the intentions of other characters. And something that you say, Joe, I think is valid, of what you said previously, is like he's thinking far ahead. He's trying to think complexly, and there's collateral damage to his actions, but he's trying to save everyone.
Yeah, just doesn't work out.
Exactly. He's trying to. This would be the best way for him to stop the jihad. Well, how can I put it?
Up to them.
If I say any more,
And as far as he knows, yeah.
Spoiling the other books, well, at least as far as I've read. But again, even he's saying that there's only so much that I can do, but this is the only way that I can do it. So he had to take the throne in order to be able to consolidate the power to be able to try and avoid the Fremen being running loose across on a holy jihad, slaughtering planet after planet after planet.
Yeah, because he sets out with good intentions, and then it just
It just kind of devolves from there.
It's like watching like a tragedy. It's no longer
A Shakespearean tragedy,
well,
really.
It's a tragedy.
Or Greek.
A Greek
Remembering
tragedy.
the name Atreides.
Oh, that's true.
Or Agamemnon.
Yes. Yes.
All right, I'm gonna move a little bit. I think I only have 2 questions left, but I don't want to keep you guys too long.
Okay.
Okay.
This was another question from Heather, kind of straightforward, of the writings in the historical text that begin each chapter of Dune are written from, I cannot say her name, Irulan? Princess Irulan? Irulan.
Irulan.
So she really only shows up at the end. And what I wanted to ask is, if you were a first-time reader, so this is mostly for Jane, did you read the excerpts before each chapter? Because sometimes they would like spoil what would happen, or they would like give away.
I know. It's like Bride of Paul Atreides. You're like, wait, but when Chani comes in, you're like, wait, what? Okay, I don't know. I don't get it. Fine, whatever. I don't know. I mean, it was all right. I didn't mind the foreshadowing. It was okay. But then I'd seen the movie before, and the first thing you see is Virginia Madsen as Princess Irulan. You know, just like, hey, how you doing?
Irulan.
Just explaining it. So it's a big story. You know, it's a big canvas. So I was okay with it overall.
And I think it's the type of like narrative that got adapted to a lot of modern fantasy, where they include excerpts and aspects of the world building like before the chapter begins.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a fan of it, but I think it kind of makes sense with Dune.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's the kind of story that would need a historical record keeper.
Again, there's no chapter headings on these chapters.
Well, that too, on a structural format.
One continuous read. You're like, that was difficult for me. I was like, where am I?
So, and I think Heather had an added question here about
like
Paul's concubine / love interest.
Yeah, well, it was mostly like Princess Irulan. I find her character really tragic because she's never really given a position in which she could fall in love through marriage. It's like she's right away when she meets Paul. Paul is like, "We're gonna get married.
I love someone else.
I love you. You're not gonna be. You're never gonna have a place in my heart." Or
I think even Jessica tells Chani's her name, right? I keep forgetting.
Chani.
Chani. I think she even tells him like, "Hey, you know what? We might not go down in history as wives, but we sure are more important." I'm like, Jesus, Paul is married.
No, actually, it's a little different. It's the reverse. It's like, okay, we may not have married these men, but we'll go down in history as their wives.
Oh, you're right. I forget the wording exactly, but she's basically saying like, we are important to these powerful men. And I like that sentiment because Jessica is really part of the reason the whole story even happened. And Chani is very important to Paul. But then because of this question that Heather posed, I'm like, this is kind of like the poor princess is kind of pushed aside.
But this is the way the culture develops because with that scene with Aron and Hera, like the maid, the
Irulan and
Hera for the beginning, you know, there's a moment where Lady Jessica's there like, but Hera, we do need Hera to help talk to the Fremen and get the, more accepted, and and Hera would have made a great concubine for why did I think wife? She even knows that it's not. You don't think that way. You got to think politically. And that's how their culture is, I guess, in this imaginary world.
It's very monarchy. Marriage is power based.
Yeah. Well, I feel like she was just never given the opportunity, but she was set up. Like her father was very manipulative. He was like, you're gonna lead on my family line, you're gonna marry for power, and you're going to do this. And it makes sense that she's like a record keeper for the tone and aspect and perspective of Dune, with all of the characters like having a ton of insight. It kind of feels like you're watching Romeo and Juliet, and the guy before the beginning, it's like both houses divided.
He's the chorus. He's the Greek chorus.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to like see from that like perspective, but it's kind of a bummer. I think in many ways she's kind of like Alia. She's just set up to be thought of as this very manipulative, like insightful character.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting choice to make Paul's wife the historian and the record keeper, because if you stepped back from the narrative and you only heard that this character was the wife of the Messiah and the emperor, the greater ruler of all. You'd think she'd have more of an important character, but it's not really about her. There are more characters more deeply involved. So I guess I kind of like that approach, that it's not just the monarchy that plays an important role in this story. There's different aspects from the different subclasses and different people. And then as a character herself, yeah, it can be tragic if you just think about her in isolation.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts. What did you think of the book?
It sucked.
All right, gonna ban Monty from this stream.
Can we mute him? The man who started this. Final thoughts on this. I will go back and reread this. I enjoyed it enough. It's got enough quotes in it. It's got enough gas in the tank to go one more time, and it was fun, but not on. It's got different levels.
Yeah,
it's a different level story, and it's got layers. And again, the most complex thing. The reason I had such difficulty with it is I like to be spoon-fed my sci-fi. I don't like having to work for it. But it's interesting to have to work for it now, being out of school and realizing that no, there are different dimensions to literature, Gene. Remember this, you were a literary major back in the day, and the whole thing, like, yeah, and you know what, when you look at a literary pursuits, there's a deeper understanding of people, of characters, of time, space, and even your own life. But it's fun to get that under your belt, to understand different stories, to have more knowledge and education. Even though it's sci-fi, there's still wisdom in it, and there's still fun and imagination. So yes, thank you for lighting this spark and throwing this into my life.
Yes, thank you for reintroducing it to me, Monty. That was...
Yeah, thank you.
And I will agree with that, because as someone who, like Jean, studied English in college, English literature, and I also studied creative writing, and a lot of my professors, I never met one who didn't have an issue with genre fiction, and always implied that it was less than literary fiction, that it was shallow and that it couldn't arise to the level of literary fiction. And to me, as the years pass, I'm like, you people have never read sci-fi then. You've never read fantasy.
You never really understood it, yeah.
Yeah, because something like Dune exists, and it has a lot of complexity and a lot of themes that are applicable to the real life and to human conditions. So, you can't make a blanket statement of, all of sci-fi is space battles or sexy alien chicks. That's not what sci-fi is. Not necessarily.
Yeah. How did you feel reading it for a second time? Did anything else pop out to you? Did you take a different perspective on how you felt about certain characters?
I think just being older makes me see, because I kept mentioning a lot of the tragedies that happened to these characters. I think when I was a kid, I was just enamored with the world building and the crazy power dynamics, the magic, and the supernatural aspects, I guess. Yeah. The Bene Gesserit as characters, and even Alia is it was a very surface level read, which I don't think lessens the experience. I think it's important for sci-fi and fantasy and other genre books to be enjoyable on a surface level. Especially to younger readers, because you don't get anything if the book is just heavy and a drag to get through. So I like the layers of it, and I like being able to revisit it now that I'm older.
Yeah. I feel like when I reread it, I could really see the aspects of the Cold War and how it influenced the writing style of Herbert. I felt like you saw more insight on why certain characters acted the way they did. I felt like when I originally read it, I was trying to understand the movie, and when I reread it, oh, maybe there's more to it. And then I read up to book 3, so it gets weird. It's a lot weirder than the movie in some ways, and a lot less weird because you see from a different lens of how things are described, and you find out that the Baron wasn't always hideous and grotesque and ugly. So it was interesting to reread it again and to be reminded of why they acted like this and how very, plotting the Baron was, and how everybody kind of strategically were just trying to wrestle for power. It was a good reread. I'm glad I reread it with y'all.
And Monty, what did you think? I'm gonna say it sucks.
How many times did you reread it?
I don't remember how many times I've read this, but being that I've been on this journey since 1984 when this movie came out, almost going to be 30 years. And even still in this last read, I picked up more stuff that I missed from previous years. As you grow older, you notice a lot more details. Alia, I think, for me, a lot more in this reading because her ending is a lot stronger than what we see in the movies, or at least I didn't think much about her character, but in the context of the greater things, it's important to look at all these characters that when I look at read a Star Trek novel where the galaxy's in danger once again, and then it's all put back together in the end.
Yeah.
This is it's so almost kind of refreshing to have this kind of this new universe to go back in again and look at it and just see how it's all laid out and how it's so taking our time with this. I think that's the other thing that I've never done, is to take our time reading this as opposed to maybe a couple of weeks. I've never had a book go this long for so many months to kind of read it, digest it, talk about it, analyze it, and then revisit this again later on. I'm like, so it's like instead of binging an entire series over the weekend, this is like waiting for each episode to drop every week for however long. So it's nice to kind of spread it out a bit more because I got to enjoy this a lot more this time than in past years. So
yeah, and considering that Dune was originally serialized, and released in chunks, it feels like the way it was supposed to be experienced. And there's a lot to say where in an age of instant gratification of if I'm going to start a show, it's because I'm going to binge watch it over the weekend and finish it by Sunday. In that age, to actually slow down and really experience the length of this book, it does enhance the experience of reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah, I read it, at least the 12th, 13th, maybe 14th time. I don't lost count.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I read it a lot of times. I actually bought the copy that I have is the one from the movie, the one that has the 1984 movie cover.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been rereading that book, I won't say once every year, but once every couple of years. So, and I always bring to it a different lens because as you grow older and you have more experiences, you're going, oh, I now understand the subtleties of this a little better.
Yeah.
Or this book always reminds me of an onion. It's like you have that layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. And you could just keep digging. But all in all, I love the fact that it works on so many levels, as mentioned. That it is a great adventure story. Mm-hmm. You can read it when you're young and go, wow. But then when you're older, you're going, oh, I understand the dynamics of this now. I understand why this occurred. I see the wonderful lens of the human condition that Herbert put with all this. You know, as a young man, you're like, oh yeah, I'm Paul. This is awesome. I'm doing all this. But then as an adult, you're going, oh my God, what has he done to this character? Why did he put him under all these ridiculous pressures and whatever else? He had to make him a man immediately after his father died. And had to go into a full survival mode and for whatever else. And I'm going, wow, just it deserves all the praise it's got.
Yeah. And I am excited to kind of either continue on or even just reread the first book again.
I did read. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, you.
No, I just hoping it gets a wider audience. I'm
Yes.
hoping that this movie brings people to read the book, because that's the ultimate way you pay tribute to it. If you like the movie, read the book. Don't get lazy. I've seen the movie; it's great.
Gene, are you talking to your past self, your December self?
Maybe. No. If I like a movie, I'll go back and read the book. I will. But usually, movies are the kindling that start the fire. You know what I mean? Because wait, it's based on a book. Holy cow! Let's go find that. But hopefully, more people will read.
On that note, let's make a plan to come together again after that movie comes out.
Sure. Yes.
Yes.
A reunion.
Yes.
That's brilliant. I like that.
So let's do that.
Give the true final thoughts, your interpretation, your
We'll do like
how
a
you-
reaction to the
the return.
Where are they now? What do they think now?
In the exact same position.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
so that's it for me. Giving it back to you, Monty.
I have a question really quick on this, really quick. Because I watched the movie with you guys, and I remember the cat milking thing.
Yep.
That's not in this
Yeah.
book, is it?
No, it is.
It is?
No.
The cat lynching? The cat milking
Well,
thing?
no, there is something about the poison and whatever.
Right,
else,
but it's not
that's
specified.
differently in the book. Right.
So
it's different in the
David
book.
Lynch came up with that and just like, yeah, let's just stick that in here. It's weird enough.
Yeah, that's his interpretation of something that was not
Specified.
specified to that degree in the book.
yeah,
Okay. All right, I understand. That was floating around in my head. I was just like,
creative
okay.
license.
So, thank
Again,
you.
it makes no sense to make that an action figure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
So our last bit, we're going to be talking about Dune in pop culture. So right off the bat, a couple of these are going to be from Star Wars. So we have our protagonist, Luke Skywalker. Guess what? On a desert planet versus Paul Atreides. Guess what? Also on a desert planet. So a lot of the things that we are noticing, like when John Carter came out, a lot of those elements that were started, like, see Superman elements that more movies came out. So by the time that comes out itself, I'm like, people say, well, we saw this already. I'm like, no, that's the originator of all of this.
Yes.
And sometimes it gets shorts. And then it's just desserts for
That's
what.
a short end.
So I'm hoping that, again, Dune doesn't do this because of Star Wars. But, we have, the forest that was taken from this. We have the weirding way. So, again, many similar elements that we have. We have the spice mines on Kessel versus the spice mines on Arrakis. I mean, again, very similar aspects and very similar elements. Here, speaking of trolls, we have.
You see, he who controls the trolls controls the kingdom, and I am that he.
You're a dude.
All right, so
Wow, you really brought
Wow.
it together, Monty.
Well,
I wasn't
Thank
expecting
you. That's
that.
very nice.
Monty knows planting and payoff.
there you go. Honestly, I did not know. I completely forgot about that. So whatever. Moonrise Kingdom, Wes Anderson, which I have yet to see, but I saw this. I'm like, oh my god, that literally is Arrakis on the back of this book. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Beetlejuice.
Yes,
Obviously,
I
where's that?
haven't seen that movie in so long.
but it like everything it comes
It
back,
fits.
Yeah.
back the circle. It circles back.
Mm-hmm. Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind.
Oh, I love that movie.
So again, the monsters themselves look a lot like the sandworms themselves. We have the Simpsons.
It certainly is exotic. Ooh, Lisa's are too spicy for you. I can see through time.
Oh, poor Lisa.
And lastly, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but this is going to be the moment that I want to
We've
share.
crashed into Dune's southern desert. We must get to the rocks. Only there will we be safe from the giant sandworms. They're attracted to the sound of our footfalls, right? Yes, but as long as you walk without rhythm, you won't attract the worm. Paul, why don't you hang back and give us a head start?
What? I can walk without rhythm. Watch this. Look at me, I'm doing it. Yes, 1 foot in front of the other. See, just making my way. Oh no, wait, hold on.
Oh no. Monty, did you send this to me like 3 months ago?
No.
Comes to mind.
But
Walk without rhythm, everyone.
yeah.
That's the lesson.
Without rhythm and you will attract the worm. Got it.
I cannot dance.
I have no rhythm.
No problem.
Wanna know about this.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm sad to say that this is it for Dune.
But we did it.
We did.
Thank you for showing up.
Knife party.
Party?
Shank. I don't know how to...
Like a Christ Ice party.
I've got your Chris knife, Joe. I'll get it to you soon.
I know.
Nice party
I
in
know.
spirit.
As they say, long live the fighters.
Long live the fighter.
Long live the fighters.
I can't do the...
You got it. You got it. You got it.
I got it.
I got it.
Not very well trained.
Yeah. So, yeah. We're done. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
Thank
You're
you,
still here?
everyone.
What are you doing here? Go home now. The movie's over.
thank you for everything. I'm like,
Yes, thank you for putting this together. Thank you to everyone who showed up. I really enjoyed hearing everyone's insights, both newcomers and experienced Dune fans.
Yeah.
I feel like I really remembered like my love and appreciation for this book, and so thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Gene?
Thank you, Monty, for making me stick to it. Thank you, Joe, for watching it with me. And if I have questions, I go back to you guys, and we'll keep going on this because again, it's going to be sticking with me for a while. So, and you and I are going to start quoting this now, back and forth. I'm sure.
Understand all of our references.
Yes.
Yep.
Alrighty. Heather, any final words?
I really enjoyed like getting together with you and like discussing something I've been so nostalgic about for so many years. So it was a lot of fun. We should do this again.
When the movie comes out, are you still going to get dressed in costume?
Hope to. Yes. If not, I'm gonna try and like make a tent or a fort in my house and watch it from in the fort to get the whole,
The real experience.
Please take pictures.
I will.
Monty, please forward them.
I would take this to the movie theater if I didn't think it'd get confiscated. So I'll be
Letter
dressed up
opener.
in spirit.
Like,
Letter opener,
you can
jam
make
spreader.
Yeah, exactly.
obviously not sharp.
It does not matter. Thank you either way, Monty.
Yeah. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah. Joe, any final words?
just thank you all. They say what, a love shared is a love expanded, and I definitely feel that way about this. That it's just fun having other people who enjoy what you enjoy and being able to discuss it with them in a manner like this, especially in times like these when getting together is, shall we say, something that can be risky.
High risk.
But yeah, exactly. But no, and I just hope that this does continue, and I can't wait to talk to everybody about what we thought about the movie once we've seen it.
Indeed.
And just thank you all.
Right. So again, I'm more than happy that we finally got to do this, let alone do this for almost 4 months. I can't wait to do this again with you guys, whatever capacity that may be. So just thank you. So
Stay safe, everyone.
all right.
Indeed. Stay safe.
You gotta come back for the movie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Exactly.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dune Book Club.
Bye, Dune.
Bye-bye. It was fun.
All right, so thank you guys for listening, finally. You should be proud of yourself having gone through all 3 book podcasts.
Good work, Misha.
Don't Misha her. She did not read it.
She got through. She's here. Easter egg for her.
No. Well, next time I talk to her and she doesn't know anything about Dune, I know she didn't read it.
Well, she didn't have to read Dune. She's nice.
Well, whatever.
She's a normal person.
Normal. So we're saying you're abnormal?
She's so normal.
She's abnormal. All right, so again, Dune is going to be coming out in October. Hopefully it's not going to be delayed any further. But in any case, if you have HBO Max, you get to see it free. And if you want to venture it out onto the big screen, which I definitely think we should, at least see it on IMAX. I don't think necessarily in 3D.
I just want to see your friend in a garbage bag.
Oh, Heather, yes. Heather did say she would get dressed up, but we'll see. Again, this is something that I've been planning for quite some time, and I'm glad that you, Mr. Gene, got through this. You still survived.
You're still sober.
Ish. Ish. Yeah, more ish than sober. But in any case, I'm glad that we got to go through this together. So, on that note, guys, we'll talk about Dune when it comes out, and hopefully we'll get into really good, deep discussions to see how well the book compares to the new movie. Remember, you can always email me at monstersci-fi@gmail.com. You can follow me on the various social networks. So, again, thank you for listening to us on the Monster Sci-Fi Show. It's sci-fi
from a certain point of view.
My God, 3 in a row. Good for you.
All right, now I'm going to start like what's up? Cocaine.
Good night.
Welcome to Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
Hello everyone, Dr. Geek here with a shout out to all the scientists who worked tirelessly to bring a COVID-19 vaccine into reality. Let's face it, creating something of this magnitude is a miracle worthy of Dr. McCoy himself. And now, Dr. Geek needs you to do your part. Remember, each shot is one small step back to normal, one giant leap to putting the pandemic behind us. We can do this. For more information, visit vaccines.gov to find your nearest provider.
Welcome to the Ring of Thunder, the most electrifying wrestling podcast in the Thunderverse and the ESO network. From the power of the people's host, Sexy Thor, critics say, it doesn't matter what the critics say. You already know you're in for a hammer-swinging, burrito-eating, mic-blazing, hair-raising time with this weekly wrestling adventure. WWE, AEW, Impact, and whatever else I can possibly fit. If you hear what the Thunder is talking.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.